Welcome to the show today, Shane. Good to see you as always, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. On the mend. As we said, I was sick earlier this week, which was not ideal. Nothing like being sick to remind you that health is super important. Which
Yeah.
And what an impact it can have. It's one of those things like when you're rocking and rolling, you don't notice it, but then when you don't have it, it totally takes over your life, kind of deal.
Oh, 100%.
Right? Obviously, I wasn't that sick, right? But I was out of commission for a day or two, so.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Being sick sucks, and this time of year, this time of year is actually like brutal. The time we're recording this, we're sitting here at the beginning of March, but this is like hay fever season for me. I don't know. I've always had it since I was a little kid. I'm sure there's some doctor who could fix it or maybe give you some. I don't know, but it's just always been a thing. And this time of year, so I always wake up and I don't feel sick, but like my head's always stuffy and it's just annoying is what it is for me. And I'm like this, yeah. But what's weird is I'm in Utah and I'm looking out my window here in the office and yep, it's snowing again today. In March, and I'm like, what on earth? And we've had like a really bad winter here where there hasn't been snow. I get up this morning to go to the gym, and I go outside. I didn't even know it was supposed to snow, and I go outside. I'm all, oh, okay. And I've got a driveway that's like, because I live in the mountains, right? And the driveway is steep, to where you get even a skiff of snow on it, and you're like, I'm not going to be able to drive a car up this thing because it just gets too slippery. So then I was like, okay, audible. I don't know. So it took me it took me too long that it's shoveling to get the snow and to plow and get everything off the clear. So I didn't have time to actually go to the gym. So this is one of those days where I had to do like the quick audible, and it took me out of my normal routine, which I hate. I hate being taken out of my normal routine. So now I've got to like adjust, which kind of leads us into today's conversation as we continue the series, right? We're continuing down the series of how to get unstuck, how to stop being the bottleneck, and how to really break through the invisible ceiling as a law firm owner. And identifying that, hey, there's like this, I think like our book that is getting released, right? By the time you're seeing this book will be out, and you guys can get a copy of it for free. Just head over to legaledgecoaching.com. But the title of the book, right, The Invisible Ceiling, there's so many things that happen that are outside of quote unquote your control that create and affect your ability to scale, to grow, to just build what you want to build. And sometimes it's as simple as hey, it snowed this morning, and it took me out of that routine and took me out of my normal process. And I don't. So that being said, like our conversation today is not going to be so tactical into the nuances of your firm, but what we're going to talk about today is what about the rest of you, right? What about the other parts of you that are outside of the firm? And answering the question, do those impact your ability to produce revenue inside the firm? Meaning your relationship at home with your spouse, your children, your relationship with your body, right? Shane, you're just talking about getting sick. Yeah. How does that impact, right, the ability for you to produce revenue and all of these things that come into it? So that's the frame on our conversation. And I want to start off today, Shane, by asking you, because this has been a conversation you and I have been having for years, and you've been in this game realizing that, hey, there's more than just business. I'm made up of a lot of things, and you've got your domains, the body, being, balance, and business, what we call them. They're firing on all cylinders, right? It's a constant game for you. But when do you remember, or has it always just kind of been intuitive for you? But I'm curious, when was the first time you realized the impact that you had in one area of life that started to impact the firm, like right in your marriage or with your kids or?
So I've generally been pretty healthy, right? Mm-hmm. Most of my life, pretty fit. I know, like when I first worked in another big firm, body sort of went out the window, right? I gained like 30 pounds. Stress was pretty bad.
Hold on. You gained 30 of fat?
Well, yeah, probably, right? I probably weighed like 160, 165 back then, but I had much less muscle mass. So I weighed about what I weigh now, but I had much less muscle.
Right,
it was
soft.
over 4 years. So that was the rebound, getting out of the Army, go work at big firm. I had an hour and 15-minute commute every day. and I was on commission, so it was like, dude, I should just work.
Right.
And that's what I did. Uh, and it's funny, what actually got me to lose the weight was we had a couple friend, and we were going to go to Dragon Con, which is that sci-fi fantasy convention we go to.
Yeah.
And they said they wanted to be Spartans that year, that like he wanted to. And I was like, this is a bad plan, dude, because like, I'm not Spartan ready. You're not Spartan ready.
You're like, hold on. Do you realize
ready
what they look like? Like, if you look at the movie 300, that's what we're being compared to.
And we were nowhere close, right? I mean, like I said, I lost 30 pounds, and I lost 30 pounds in like 4 months, right? So that's pretty aggressive.
Yeah, that's very aggressive.
But I look at pictures back then, and I'm like, I look so soft and like weak even then, right? I mean, and that was, we didn't even run with the group I run with now. We were dressed like city Spartans, like we were doing our own thing. It was pretty,
right.
I mean, in hindsight, it's pretty pitiful. But I lost that weight, and that, you know, it didn't ever really bounce totally back after that, where I got that heavy.
I just can't even picture you. I've known you for a while, and like, dude, you've always been cut and lean.
I didn't look that terrible, you know, but I mean, I was younger back then, but I just didn't have the muscle mass that I have now.
Well, it's just your composition was totally different, and I've only ever known you with a composition of a Spartan warrior. Not, you know, right. I'm not stroking your ego here, but you do it every year, and you send me the photos. I'm like, holy shit, Shane, you look like you literally look like a Spartan warrior. I'm like, it's badass. So
it takes a bunch of work, right? But so I was always pretty decent. I think where I realized the huge impact it had is every now and then you get these wake-up calls when you get sick, right? Like this week I was sick. I massively got it when I got on some medicine for my allergies and asthma that sort of like wiped me out, right? But then really when my wife broke her ankle, I realized what a huge impact health has on any of us, right? When it goes away. Because, like, I'd had knee surgery, but that was like, I had it on a Friday. I was back into work on Monday with my knee propped up, but no impact.
Yeah.
But when she broke her ankle, that, like, screwed up. You know what I mean? It took a huge focus. And I realized at that point, like, dude, we take health so for granted.
Yeah. Well, it's easy because you just kind of wake up in the morning and you think, well, this is just me. Like, it's like you don't think about it at all. It's just like, you don't appreciate the fact that, you know, you and I this morning got out of bed, walked into the bathroom easily, moved around, got ready in the morning, and then jumped in. It's like what happens until all of a sudden you realize, oh, this isn't a guarantee.
And it was mostly for, right, like I didn't even, the things that brought it into focus wasn't me. It was like when my wife got sick, when her dad got hurt, and she was driving 20 minutes to take care of him and then 20 minutes back like twice a day, right? You see those things. Because when you're young, you take health for granted.
Yeah.
I think as you get older, that becomes more of an issue, right? I think there's something to be said when you lose your first adult peer, right, to some illness.
Yeah.
That's like a wake-up call. And then usually a couple of years later, you lose like another one. You're like, oh, you know, the first one's like a fluke, right? Like, oh, this is just bad luck. But then like, I don't know, 5-10 years later, you see somebody who dies from something that's controllable, right? Like you look at, they have a heart attack, they have high blood pressure, they have weight issues that contribute to everything. You know, all of these things that you're like, man, maybe I should tighten things up, right? Yeah. I mean, maybe. So it hasn't been always, but it's been most of my identity, sort of, right? I've always been pretty active, like I say, other than like those 4 years when I worked at Big Law or whatever, or big law firm. You know, I wasn't active then. Then I was just focused on making money, right? But
so talk to me about why does you now, the version of you now that has existed for a while, but the one that takes care of yourself, how is you having a body that's weaponized? I mean, I don't know another word to use for it. A weaponized body. How has that actually increased your productivity inside of the firm, or even just revenue? Like, how has that helped you in the scaling of, like, connect that for me? Because I think that's where everybody gets, it's like, okay, cool. So I could go be a gym rat. I could go lose a bunch of weight and, you know, and be shredded and look amazing. Well, most people, and this, I've had people say this to me. They're like, unless I'm going to be a model, right? I'm going to go model for Calvin Klein or Banana Republic, then what the hell does it matter whether I have a six pack or not?
Yeah. I think if you think about all the people we admire, right? And we most often, and I'm not saying everybody needs to look like I do, right? To be cut and defined, but rarely do we admire people who are really in poor health, is what I'll say. I won't even just say weight. I'll say in poor health. The guy who starts panting going up 2 flights of stairs. The person who's exhausted at the end of every single day all the time. And I don't mean when they work the 20-hour day. I mean when they work the 8-hour day.
Yeah.
Your kids don't admire you if when you come home you just got to sit down on the couch because you're so wiped out every day. I mean, they can't play with you. You're not fun. They don't see that and think, dude, that's the life I want.
Yeah.
I think I think your staff and employees see you differently if you're, I'll just say overweight, but I mean, if you're not in good shape health-wise, I think it impacts your relationships with everybody else. And I also think if you don't have the energy to go throughout your day on a pretty regular basis, that's a bad problem, right? And
Yeah.
I've seen it with weight. I've seen it with people who have issues with alcohol and drugs where, it impacts all of that. It impacts their emotional regularity, their energy, their focus. I mean, all of those things, it's there. And it, like I say, it impacts every relationship around you as well, how people see you.
Yep. Yep. And I think to add it to what you're saying, because I completely agree. And it's like you have two different levels of the eyes of looking at this, right? One is how people are perceiving you and how you're perceived as a leader, right? You're trying to lead your firm. You're trying to grow your business. You've got teammates that are looking to you as the leader. Are you embodying, literally, the body? Are you embodying the definition of a leader that you would look up to, right? So that's one side, is the outside. And then the other side is, how do you see yourself? Right. What does that feel like, right? So I was 40, just barely turned 40, and I may have talked about this on the show before, but I had just barely turned 40, and I'm at a concert with my son and my wife. We're sitting up we had this really cool section overlooking the stage. We're looking down on the performance. It was an amazing show. And halfway through the show, I literally am like, what is happening to my body? Start getting pain shooting down my left arm. I start getting really lightheaded. And I'm like, holy shit, my heart, I can feel it. My chest is starting to just like constrict, and then pound really. And I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, out of everything I've ever learned, I was a Boy Scout. I was back in, I know first aid, and we learned about this kind of thing. And I remember from all these classes, my CPR class, all this, I'm like, holy shit, I'm having a heart attack. Something's going on. I'm like, I don't know I haven't fallen over dead yet, so I don't think it's like severe, maybe. I don't know, right? So all that happens. Fast forward with the story. I get rushed to the emergency room. They admit me. I'm in the hospital for about 2 days, like 48 hours. They're running every test possible, trying to figure all this stuff out. This is me at 40 years old. From the outside, it looked like this guy's a healthy guy. He probably has it all together. But on the inside, no. Well, obviously, I wasn't, right? My body wasn't working right. And at the time, I was drinking lots of alcohol. And I was under tremendous amounts of stress. And I was ignoring it. I was pretending like I wasn't. I was pretending like drinking wasn't a problem. I was pretending all of these things because, it's just, I don't know, nobody likes to talk about these types of things.
That's what you do, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, not to make an excuse, but I think so many people, that's what you do when you're in that pocket, right? And you're grinding work. It's almost like I don't want to say a badge of honor, but it's like, I'm just abusing my body.
Yep. And I'm ludicrous to think that was not impacting my ability to produce inside of the business domain. There's no chance. I was showing up every morning, usually hungover, but you wouldn't know it because on the outside I could pretend. But dude, I remember the feeling. I remember my alarm going off in the morning and feeling like a dump truck was sitting on top of me, and I couldn't even hardly get out of bed. And then I'm like, it was just, and then I'm showing up to work, and I'm like, I know it, and I know I'm half of who I actually am. Like my ability for my brain to work and to function, all of those things. It's like but I'm lying. I'm just a liar. I won't admit it. I won't admit it to anybody. In half of my drinking, more than half of it happened in closed doors. Even with my wife, like she didn't know that I was drinking that much, right? So because I would have a bottle and I would take 3 or 4 shots. Like I was drinking a lot. I would take 3 or 4 shots before I got inside the house, so that if her and I drank, to her it was like, oh, he's just having a glass of wine with me, not knowing that I was already three, four, five drinks
Right.
down by the time we got in the conversation. And this was happening every single night. And I'd have shit. It was looking back after this experience at 40, and I'm looking back, I'm like, well, no shit, Sherlock. Like, it doesn't take a lawyer to figure out what was, no investigation needed to happen, no court of law needed to, no, this was going to happen. And I think the big kicker for me was realizing at the time my daughter was 10. I think she was 10. Or 9, something like that. But she was young. And I just remember having this thought that someone else, another man, is going to walk my daughter down the aisle.
That brings up, that brings up the balance domain, right?
Yep.
But that fear, right? Like if you're not careful, somebody's going to bring it. And this was just on health and fitness, but I'm sure once you realize that was probably like a lightning bolt moment.
Oh, dude, 100%. But it also, like you said about the balance in the relationships, it's like realizing, holy shit, that matters.
It does. Yeah.
And I'm divorced. I've been through a divorce. I've been through an environment where I have that horrible experience you're going through. And again, just like the body, it's ludicrous to think that your relationships at home are not directly impacting your ability to produce as an attorney. At your ability to focus and to stay connected and in that space, right? I remember when my wife and I split, she moved, literally, we lived in Utah and she moved all the way to Florida, right? And almost immediately after we split. And I remember, it was probably a year of my life where I was pretty damn useless. Yeah. And part of it was because of the divorce. The other part of it was because I allowed all of the bullshit that everybody says around me to justify me acting like a piece of shit. Does that make sense? Like, because everybody's like, oh, you're going through a divorce, it's okay. So then I'm like,
double down on the I feel so bad for myself, as opposed to
pulled the victim card out and I'm like, look at this, I'm going through a divorce, poor me. When inside I'm like, actually okay. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go hook up and find a new girl, like whatever. Like, it wasn't actually that bad. It was at the beginning, but then I just milked it. I remember,
it's a great excuse, right? It's an
perfect
excuse for everything.
100%. And my production completely tanked. My ability to produce revenue completely tanked. And so I have my own personal experience in my life that if my body is not on point, if my relationships with my wife and my children are not on point, if my daughter and I are not in sync, my son and I are not in sync, I have so much evidence that directly impacts my ability to do this, to do my thing, to get on and have energy and have decision-making skills that actually make sense, not the sluggish ones that I'm trying to fight and make decisions through this fog. Like you talked about it earlier today when we were chatting about the fog, being sick this week and the impact that has on, right? You're in the heart of it, Monday or Tuesday, probably not a good day to make some pretty significant decisions for the firm.
No, I mean, and before we go to that, I was going to say too, I use working out as a stress relief, right? Running your own firm is massively stressful. The bigger your firm gets, the more stress there is, right? The hours may change, the issues may change, but the stress gets bigger and bigger. And if I don't work out, I don't burn stress, right? And I only have, then you start looking at a bottle more regularly, or you take it all out on your wife and kids, and suddenly, you're an asshole, basically.
Yeah.
So I've got to work out. When I don't, I become a psychopath. So it's just for that. But then when you move to it, like the brain fog, like you were talking, I had my wife read an email that I was going to send because I'm like, hey, I don't want to come across like a psycho.
Right.
And I also want to make sure it makes sense because I'm in this foggy position. And I'm sure like when you were hungover every day, the first hour of the day, your stuff was probably terrible.
Oh, yeah. It was. Well, what was so stupid is it wasn't. There wasn't even shit being produced. So I would literally come in, usually into the office, and I would close the door, and half the time I would just sit there in my chair and not do anything.
Yeah.
Because I feel like such dog shit. And I'm just like, I'm popping caffeine and as much as I can, I'm trying to everything I can do, and I'm just like, and then finally I would start to feel somewhat like I could do something. And the hard part is you guys. Because I know I did it. I know you've done it, Shane. You will justify because you're a hard worker.
Yeah.
You'll justify the fact that you're doing it because you can still produce. So you're still getting a result. It's not like things stop churning and stop burning. you're able to continue to pull it off.
No, I've told people like, yeah, I'm on my B game today, but let's be fair, my B game kicks the shit out of a lot of people's A game, right? So it's
Yep.
sort of like I can be off and still be
Yep.
doing good,
Yep.
but you're not doing where you want to be.
No, and
Right?
you're nowhere.
You're not hitting that potential.
You're nowhere near your potential, and that's like the story. Like we've had several shows here about stories, right? The things we tell ourselves and the lies we tell ourselves, right? And one of the biggest stories I've had, which is interesting because it feeds right in line with the drinking and the justification and the treating my previous wife like shit, and just that whole relationship, just disconnecting from all of them. But it's this narrative and this story that because I'm naturally good at certain things, like we all are. Like I'm not putting myself above anybody else here. We all have our things that we're naturally good at. And if you're doing that thing, you can give 60, 70% and be better than 80 to 90%. Whatever that is, everybody has their thing. Like some people, it could be technology, right? You jump into we were talking about this earlier, OpenClaw and some of the new AIs that are coming out. Like if you're naturally dispositioned that way, that's your skill. It's easy for you. You don't really have to give a lot of effort. Whereas somebody like me is going to have to like go 100% to even be competitive. And the problem is when you're talented at something, especially you attorneys, you're good. You wouldn't have opened your own firm, and you wouldn't have pushed and built any kind of anything if you didn't have skill set here.
Oh yeah.
But what's the statement? Hard work beats talent 10 times out of 10.
Uh-huh.
And that's where we get in a really weird headspace of living so below our potential when we don't align our domains to actually be productive and moving forward, because you'll give a lesser percentage and you'll beat some of those. But that was the story that I've always had, that I've worked my ass off to get rid of, that where it's, no, I don't care if I'm quote unquote better than some, or that what's my potential? Yeah. What am I capable of actually doing? And when I've done that and I do that, I'm not patting myself on the back, but I'm just expressing, because you can all do the same thing. I have seen shit that I've pulled off that I'm like, holy shit. I knew there was potential here, but when I actually went all in, whoa. Shit changed. But I could never do that if I didn't have my wife at home who loves and supports me and is like on point. Like it won't work. It doesn't work if I don't have my body. If I feel like shit, there's no way I'm showing up into a business meeting or a meeting with a client or any environment, like and being the best version of me.
No, you can't.
No.
Right? Because let's say you got a meeting at 10 and it takes an hour. You roll in feeling terrible. It may take an hour to get in the right frame where you can even have the meeting. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you were feeling good about yourself, you could spend that hour preparing for the meeting and actually being better during the meeting.
Yep.
Those are two radically different things, right? One is like, I get up here, boom, I have the meeting. I'm on point during the meeting, but I'm not where I could have been because I didn't. Does that make sense? I just spent all that time just getting ready to do the meeting.
Well, how many meetings have you ever been in, Shane, where you show up and you can tell, like you've been up since 5 a.m., 6 a.m., whatever it is, and you've got your morning routine, like you've invested in all the domains, like you're ready to go. And you show up to this 9 a.m. meeting, and the person you're meeting with, you can see in about 2 seconds, you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
They're the coffee guy. I've got my coffee, fucking sleepy eyes, and they literally haven't, like, and you're like, oh my gosh. Like, and if it's an employee or something like that, it pisses you off. If it's a strategic meeting or a sales conversation, I'm not going to lie. Maybe this is like the bad side of me, but I look at that. I'm like, oh, I'm going to own you. Like, and I know it because I'm like, it's like I'm showing up to battle. Let's just put it in a battle scenario. I show up and I've got armor on, swords, shields. I'm like, I'm ready to go. And you show up and you're like sleepy eyed guy with the coffee, and you show up and I'm like, you got pajamas on and a popsicle stick that we're going to fight again. You have a popsicle stick. I've got a sword. I'm going to win.
I know. I mean, it's like showing up to, and lawyers, I'll put it, showing up for a hearing or something. Mm-hmm. And I see this all the time in depositions, right? And you see the person who comes in, rolls in, there's a 15-minute deposition prep for their client or for the other side. They spend 15 minutes. I've spent like the day before several hours, and then spent an hour and a half the day before, before the depo starts.
Yep.
Ours goes smooth, and the other one just gets slaughtered.
Yep.
And this happens all the time. And I see lawyers and they're like, well, that was just a bad client, or I put it all on the client. We talked about this. You talked about it for 15 freaking minutes, dude.
Yep.
You didn't adequately prepare. You rushed that dude because you didn't feel good. You know what I mean? You had to spend time getting in the zone. You gave your client no time to get in the zone, and it didn't work.
Yeah, well, you operated at a low standard, like you
Right.
and you will only operate to the standard at which you hold yourself, and you can't just magically you can't just magically turn into a powerful person. It just doesn't happen. You don't just all of a sudden become eloquent in speech. You don't all of a sudden just have all your shit and ready and to go because you spent, right? The moment of execution is when preparation no longer matters because you're either prepared or you're not. But it's all the shit that's happening behind that. And interestingly enough, this is all areas of life, right? Which kind of brings me to, we could obviously have this conversation forever. It's probably one of my favorite conversations. You joked about it, Shane, when it was like, you're like, what are we talking about today? And I tell you, and you're like, well, that's a softball approach. It's not like you're not used to talking about this shit all the time.
Yeah, it is. But I actually have bought into this. I bought into it years ago, right?
Yeah.
That all of this matters, that your health matters. Your relationship with your spouse and your kids matters a whole bunch. I mean, I've told you, Trevor, one of the things that makes me so sad is when I see lawyers talk to their kids and their kids don't become lawyers.
Yeah.
Because they're like, no, I don't want that lifestyle. I don't want that, Dad.
Yeah.
And, that's one of the things that actually breaks my heart and I think is just awful.
Yeah.
And that's where I think lawyers have to do better. They have to show that this is not a profession where, being an alcoholic, being a drug addict is the norm. And it's more alcoholic, right?
Yeah.
But every state bar has classes. They have, sobriety programs. They have all this stuff because the stress is so high for lawyers, and it's even higher when you're running your own law firm, that lawyers fall into this trap of how do you deal with it all?
Yep.
And if you're not doing body, and if you don't invest in your relationship with your spouse, you end up divorced, which, like you say, impacts the drinking and all of that even worse normally. It's a great excuse to double down on feeling bad for yourself, right? And obviously, that's a terrible time in most people's lives, but all of that compounds and just destroys lawyers, basically.
Well, it destroys you as a human being, like from the inside out. It's not, and you can't even blame the outside world for it. You can't. I mean, you can try. You can try to blame other people in other situations, but it literally beats you down little by little. It's the affairs that you're having. It's all the ways you're trying to find to release from the stress and the pressure without realizing that, hey, there is actually a way to be the most powerful version of who you are. And like you Shane, you're a living example of this, which is why I just love what you have created and have done, because you've built a firm that does $20 million a year plus, and you've got a marriage that's on fire, right? Right. I love. What do you
just celebrated 26 years of marriage.
Yeah, which is phenomenal all in itself. But I know a little more intimately than everybody. But you guys, it's not just 26 years. Yeah. It's 26 years, and you guys are connected. Like there is something real there, right? It's not 26 years of being a partner in the same house. It's 26 years of actually true connection. And what do you have a name for red string, I think?
Red string theory, yeah. So there's a belief that certain souls are connected by a red string of fate, which says, in this life and the next, you'll find each other and you'll be together, right? Yeah. So like your soulmates in every life, you'll find each other, which we believe, right? I mean, we love each other desperately. And,
which I think that's to the testament, right? So you've built this. You don't work 100 hours a week. No. You're not a slave to the firm. And so what you're demonstrating by your life, not by what you say, but by your life, is that the mold that most attorneys fall into doesn't have to be, right? It's not like, well, this is the path. If I go down here, I become an alcoholic, I cheat on my wife, I end up divorced, my wife ends up with half of everything, or my husband, right? Either way. Right. And so like that's the stereotype, right? The stereotype is the attorney who's at work till midnight and then starts at 4 a.m. in the morning and then continues to do this every day, and their kids don't even know who they are, and they end up with some kid who goes off and becomes some drug addict and
Right.
in rehab because dad's never there. All these cliches that 100% exist, they exist for a reason because they are the normal, unfortunately. Like this is maybe not to the extreme, but a lot of those tendencies end up becoming that. And I think as we wrap today's show, I want to give you something tactical that you can take this idea and this element and realize that it's not as complex as you may think. You don't have to be shredded like Shane. You don't, right? You don't have to have a six-pack. You don't have to have big freaking cannon arms. You don't like that's not. You don't have to have 26 years of marriage. You could have 1 year of marriage. You don't have to have, a bunch of kids. You could have no kids. You could have one child. You could have. It doesn't matter. So your scenarios and your details are not actually as relevant as the following. This is what I want to leave with you guys on today's conversation. Is first thing, admitting and acknowledging that you're made up of more than just a firm owner. You're more than just an attorney, right? Okay, that should be pretty easy for all of you to admit, but what you'll find is if you look at your day-to-day patterns, most of you guys might vocalize that, hey, yeah, I'm more than just an attorney, but if I were to follow you around, I'm probably going to actually see evidence that actually supports the other. Right, so it's a self-assessment for yourself, realizing, hey, I'm more than just an attorney. I've got a body, I've got a relationship with family, and I've got a relationship with God, right, with myself, my soul, right, my intuition, etc. And I happen to also be an attorney, right? So that's just one element inside of that, inside of those. And so a simple way to look at this is how. Trying to think of the right way to say this because this isn't a 4-hour podcast and I can't dive into all the deep details, but basically there has to be an investment made into the things you care about. If you care about something, if you care about living, well, you got to make an investment in your body. If you care about being married, well, you got to make an investment in that marriage. If you care about the firm, right? If you didn't give a shit about the firm and you don't invest in the firm, well, what's going to happen? It's going to fall apart, right? You're not going to make any money. So it's the same thing across the board. And that would be, it's tactical, but more tactical in what the mindset, because, there's not a whole lot of actions I want to give you right now to build on this, but it's really looking at identifying that I need to invest in the things I care about. And in order for me to be the best version of me possible, I have to address all of me. I can't pretend. This is like me having cancer, but pretending it's not there. Well, pretend all you want, right? My sister-in-law right now, she literally 3 weeks ago, a month ago, maybe it's been a month ago now, gets a really bad headache, wakes up in the morning, can't see out of her damn eye. Literally can't see out of her eye. She's like, holy shit. Turns out she's been having headaches for like the last 2 years. Really bad, and then they would go away. Really bad, and they would go away. And she kind of just ignored it, which most of us probably would do the same thing, right? She ignores it, boom. Fast forward, long story short, she has cancer behind her eye. It's all crazy. She's had freaking surgery, unreal. She's now on chemo. It was like emergency rush. So in the space of 30 days, her ignoring a small pain in her life, it turned into she's got brain cancer. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Right? And she's same age as me. She's 46. Right? And out of nowhere, she's got 3 kids at home. Her youngest boy is 6. And now she's dealing with this. So she's ignored, and now all of a sudden it's a thing. So what I want to challenge you guys on is you can't ignore. If you care about something, you must invest in it. So I just want you to start looking at the things you care about across all of who you are. And then anchor to the concept, and Shane's living proof. I'm living proof. If you invest in all areas of your life, you become who you're meant to become, and you actually make more money. It's no longer force. It just comes at you. You're able to actually build and stabilize because you're operating at like a level 10 you, not a level 7 you or a level 5 you. And some of you operating at like a level 2. And you're wondering why shit's not working because everything else is falling apart. Right? So any final thoughts you got, Shane?
The only thing I'm going to say is a question on how to decide if you really are investing in your marriage or not. And this is what made it for me. The question is, if you go to a conference, does that hotel room you stay at generally cost more than the hotel you stay at with your kids or your wife? If you go to a networking dinner, does the cost of that dinner, is it more or less than when you take your wife out to dinner on a regular basis, your regular stuff? And if it is, then that's probably a problem. And I'd say that shows you're not investing into your relationship with your spouse and with your kids. Or would you want your kids to have your life? And if the answer is no, then you need to upgrade your life.
Yep.
So.
Yep. I love it. I love it. All right. I appreciate you guys being listeners of today's show. If you got value from today's show, as we dove into the core four, body, being, balance, and business, and the impact that actually has on the firm and you making money, please share the show up with someone else who might get value, and also give us a like and a subscribe. The show grows because you help it grow. We aren't running ads. We're not doing this this is a labor of love for Shane and I, because we want to make a difference and an impact on other attorneys like you who are trying to build and grow and scale and get to where you want to go. I mentioned at the beginning of the show, but our buck, there we go, Shane Smith, Trevor White, right? It's out. We're excited. So go pick up a copy of that at thelegaledgecoaching.com. This has all that we're talking about in these shows, but it has it in a tactical place. This is more like a workbook that you can work through, and you can actually get some of these strategies and techniques. And for, again, we're still doing it. I don't know how long we'll do it for, but we are offering up the deep dive conversation where we will jump in one-on-one with those who are qualified to have we'll dive into your firm and figure out, where are you stuck? What do you need to do? What are some of your blind spots that you're missing, and that are creating that, that stuckness. You can't figure out how to grow. You can't figure out how to scale, and you feel like you're doing everything right, but it just doesn't seem to be working. This conversation will help you get unstuck and help you break through that invisible ceiling. So head over to LegalEdgeCoaching.com for that. The link is also down below here in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube or any of the listening platforms, it's also there as well. So that being said, that brings us to a conclusion today. Have a fantastic rest of your day. We're out.